I can no longer deny my need to create. It's gotten to the place where I can literally feel the muse inside of me banging at the walls of the prison that I've trapped it in. And the thing is that I don't just need to create something because my career allows me a lot of creativity. As a self employed person, I do have a lot of freedom over what I choose to do each day. But when I say that I need to create, I mean that I need to make something that is not tied to my career, to my success, to my income. I need a place to play and to be free and to just experiment. And I've suppressed that urge for so long and tried to push it down and ignore it that like it's painful at this point. I need to make something. I need to shout from the rooftops. I need to share my experience because it hurts to be silent. And I know that I've got great things inside of me. If you've followed me on TikTok, you'll know that I am a late diagnosed ADHD and autistic person. I've been slowly coming to terms with my diagnosis and the unmasking process over the last couple years. But I'd say that these past few months, I've really embraced the unmasking process. I think that the content that I made on TikTok in the first couple years of my diagnosis was mainly in an effort to explain myself to allistic people and to justify my existence. I thought if I can explain myself enough and clearly enough and articulately enough, then I will be valuable. I'll be worthy of taking up space. But I'm tired of asking for permission to be myself, to be authentically me. So this channel is really an effort to give myself some freedom, to give myself a playground to express myself without any judgment, without any fear. This is mine. I've dabbled in YouTube in the past. I've done, back when I was 17, after my exchange in Thailand, I was singing Thai covers for a while. I tried my hand at comedy. I tried my hand at more of like a medical educational YouTube for my patients because I'm an acupuncturist. But all of those things were my efforts to try and cater to a specific audience or to gain some sense of like fame or notoriety because all I wanted was to be seen. But I'm at the really not giving a shit phase at this point. Like, I'm so tired of making myself smaller. I want to do great things, and I know I can do great things. And this is my first step towards that future that I envision for myself. Something I've realized through the unmasking process is that as the mask comes off, it is impossible to put it back on. And initially, I was really disheartened by that. I felt like I was grieving this person that I thought that I was. Because as you unmask, it becomes harder to do the things that allowed you to survive in the world before. In university and in high school, I was able to push myself past my limits. And it wasn't comfortable, but I was able to do it and function. Whereas I'm hitting a point now where I can't be anything other than true to myself. So the topic of this video is the things that I am no longer willing or able to do as I unmask. I'm hoping that other neurodivergent folks can learn something from this, but we've all got to understand that we're at different places in our journey and that no process of diagnosis to unmasking to authentic living is going to look the same for each person. So this is just my experience. If it echoes and mirrors your own, awesome. If not, maybe you should create something of your own and share your own story. That is one of the reasons that I've started to become so vocal online is because I don't necessarily see myself depicted. There are a lot of stories that have elements of my own experience, but nothing that encapsulates me entirely. So rather than waiting for someone else to do it, I'm stepping up to the plate and sharing who I am. I think maybe part of me wishes that I was able to do this face to face with friends, with family, but something about talking to a camera through a microphone is easier. There's some separation, some distance that makes it a little bit easier for me to open up and be vulnerable. So this is the format that we'll go with for now. So let's start with number one. The first thing that I'm no longer willing to do is prioritize the comfort of others at the expense of my own. I've spent essentially 30 plus years so worried about whether other people are happy, satisfied, entertained. And I viewed the comfort of others as my own personal responsibility. You know, if I was hanging out with a friend, I thought it was my own 100% responsibility to make sure that they weren't bored, that they were having a good time, that they were physically comfortable, that all of their needs were met, even if that meant denying my own need. I'm not willing to do that anymore. Part of this too is I'm no longer willing to suppress my internal urges like stimming. I know that sometimes the things that I do with my hands, the noises that I make, the way that I move my body, the way that I take up space in the world is strange from the outside. Not everyone understands why I need to do certain things or move in certain ways, but I'm done trying to ask for permission. I'm done explaining myself. It's like I can't hold these things in anymore, and I don't think I need to. As long as I'm not hurting anyone, I see no reason why I shouldn't be able to openly express myself in whatever way is most comfortable for me. The other thing is I no longer want to make myself feel guilty about asking for accommodations, especially if the accommodations are really easy for other people to carry out. You know, dimming the lights, turning the sound down, creating a sensory environment that I feel safe and comfortable in. And the thing is that I know that I'm not the only neurodivergent person in my circle. I know that there are people around me who also have ADHD, likely autism as well. And hopefully, by being vocal about my needs, it will give other people the strength to vocalize theirs as well. So, these last few months have really been about putting my comfort, my physical, mental, spiritual comfort at the top of my priority list. Again, I never want my needs and my accommodations to infringe upon the comfort of somebody else, but I'm done ignoring my needs. The second thing that I feel like I can no longer do, and I've already alluded to this, is deny my urge to be creative. I think that if you are neurodivergent, you need to be creating. And I think this goes for every human being. I think that we're all innately creative in some way, but the ability of neurodivergent folks to make connections between seemingly unrelated disciplines makes us perfect artists because we can take ideas that might not look like they go together on the surface and we can find ways to meld them together into something new, into something exciting. I think that neurodivergent people are likely on the forefront of many kind of cultural and artistic progressions. I think that denying our creative urge as neurodivergent folks is actually directly damaging to our mental health and to our spirit. Along those same lines, I'm no longer willing to put my creative needs on the back burner. The goals that I have for myself, the things that I want to do, whether it's music, writing, filming, those things require time. They require effort, they require practice, and there's only so much time in the day, right? So that means that sacrifices are going to need to be made. Unfortunately, that means that I'm going to have less time for friends, for family, for anyone other than myself. And I know that that might sound selfish, but I'm done putting my needs on the back burner and I'm ready to start prioritizing myself. It feels almost life or death at this point. I don't think that I can continue living while not creating. And I know that might sound dramatic, but as someone whose mind has brought them to some pretty dark places in the past, I think that the root of some of those really dark and depressing thoughts are directly tied to stifling my creative energy. The third thing that I will no longer do is over explain myself in an effort to be understood. I'm sure many neurodivergent folks can echo this sentiment of talking and talking and talking in loops to try and get people to understand your experience, to understand your point of view, bending over backwards in a simple attempt to try and be understood. At this point in my unmasking journey, I no longer have the energy to try and have people understand me. I will always welcome people into my mind with open arms if they so desire, if they have the willingness to try, but I'm taking the responsibility off myself to try and be understood. Because there's a lot of aspects of myself and of my personality that people don't understand and they can't understand, even other neurodivergent folks. It might sound conceited, but I think that, what goes on in my brain is so intricate and nuanced that you really can't understand it unless you're in there yourself, you know? And I'm not claiming to be some masterful genius or savant, but I do think that a lot of the thoughts that I have on a daily basis are at a much deeper level than many folks that I interact with. And I'm tired of trying to dumb things down or make these big ideas smaller so that they're more digestible to other people. And I guess that does bring me to my next point, number 4, which is I refuse to downplay my intelligence anymore. I'm smart. I'm really smart. I think as a kid, I knew that. I was very proud of my intelligence and my intellect as a kid. But I think over, years and years of being bullied, of being made fun of for being a nerd or a geek, I decided it was safer to just dumb things down. But I'm tired of playing stupid, of playing dumb, of pretending that I don't know the answer when I do know the answer, especially when it comes to things like my special interests. I'll hear somebody in a conversation say a fact that's completely wrong. And in the past, I might just say, whatever, it's not worth diving into. But I'm proud of my intelligence. I'm proud of the knowledge that I've gained. And I'm going to take every opportunity that I can to showcase that knowledge and to spread that knowledge. Because again, being intelligent and being proud of your intelligence doesn't take away from anyone else's experience. I'm not using it to try and lord some kind of superiority over other people. I don't think that I'm better than anyone else. I think that every person is capable of this. I just choose to prioritize learning over other pursuits. Learning for me is what makes life worth living. Learning and gaining knowledge is one of the reasons that I'm still here. It's gotten me through some of the darkest times in my life. And that's why I think that as neurodivergent people, we need special interests and we need to allow ourselves the freedom to explore our special interests to as far as we're willing to take them. If you're a neurodivergent person yourself, my guess is that you're likely very intelligent yourself. So I urge you, in whatever field you're in whatever area of expertise you have, don't downplay it. Show people who you are, share your knowledge, be an expert. I'm done with imposter syndrome. Honestly, there are a ton of imposters in my field. I am not one of them. And part of that intelligence that I have is a willingness to admit when I don't know things. I have no problem telling my patients when I've hit my limits in the treatment room. If there's an illness or an ailment that I don't know much about, but I'm always willing to learn more. I'm always willing to dive in and expand my awareness and my knowledge as much as I am capable of. I think maybe I was taught to believe that being proud of your intelligence was something arrogant, but I think that being proud of my intelligence allows me to be of more service to people and to be more of an agent of change than I would be otherwise. I don't think anyone benefits when we make ourselves smaller to try and fit in. We don't benefit, the people we interact with don't benefit. I think that there's only things to gain by celebrating your brain. So that brings us to our next point, which is I can no longer minimize my internal experience. So, whether I'm out in public and experiencing sensory overload or overwhelm, whether I am in an argument and starting to shut down and I hit a place where it's difficult to speak, whether I'm under the weather and having a really intense experience because as a neurodivergent person, I experience things in a really deep and visceral way. It's one of the difficult things about being a low support needs ADHD and autistic person is a lot of people look at me, they see a conventionally attractive successful male. So they kind of write off any difficulties that I face because from the outside, it looks like I'm doing very well. And in a lot of cases, I am. I am very grateful for the life that I lead, but I can't deny that there are things that I really, really struggle with, whether it's socializing in large groups of people, being in environments that are overwhelming or overloading, whether it's my ability to work. A lot of people don't even bat an eye at like a 40-hour work week, whereas I feel like I struggle with even 30. I'm tired of pretending that this world is built for someone like me and that I'm okay, because a lot of the time I'm not. A lot of the time I feel like I'm really just scraping by in this society. And I don't think it serves anyone to try and bury that. If anything, I think I need to be more vocal and more honest about my struggles so that other people feel empowered to do the same. Number 6 is I can no longer allow myself to stay in one lane. This is a big one with ADHD. My whole life, I was told to pick a subject and stick with it. When I was in university, I changed my major probably 10 different times. And even my parents were like, what are you planning to do with your life? Like, you need to pick a direction and stick with it. But I'm realizing more and more that one of my strengths as a neurodivergent person is the fact that I have so many multifaceted interests and passions. Some people call it a renaissance soul, some people call it a multipotentiate, some people call it a polymath, whatever you want to call it. Don't ever feel like you need to force yourself into a box. Nothing I have ever learned has ever been in vain. No skill that I have ever gained has been useless. Even, this is an example. Like, yes, I may work as an acupuncturist, but it's my skill and interest in video editing, in sound design, in public speaking, in all of these different things that allow me to do something like this. I like having multiple strengths and multiple skills and making connections across disciplines that don't seem related. I honestly think that that's my purpose in life, is to make connections between things where people don't see a connection. So as I unmask and as you unmask, you will likely find it much more difficult to stay in a lane. But it's good. It's a blessing because you shouldn't have to. There are so many elements to the neurodivergent experience that I initially viewed as a curse or a downside. And only recently I've started to view them as blessings and strengths, which is great because when I was really in the thick of that grief, in the thick of that, anger and disappointment and resentment and frustration, I never thought that I was going to get to a place where I viewed my brain as being more of a superpower. And I don't like that word because it's a bit cliche, but I can honestly say at this point that I am grateful and happy to be neurodivergent. I wouldn't want to be anything else. I love my brain. I love the way that I carve up the world. I love the way that I experience things. And I can't wait to live the rest of my life through that lens. I might be late diagnosed, but at least I'm in my 30s and not in my 70s, I still have so much time in the grand scheme of things. And one of the benefits of being a multifaceted and intelligent neurodivergent person is that I learn very quickly. So I already feel like I've made up for so much quote unquote lost time. The next thing that I am no longer willing to do is participate in things that I don't understand or agree with just because they are the cultural norm. I've had so many people call me rude, or I think rude is the main one. Rude for not participating in the game of small talk or saying goodbye to people, or it's difficult to think of examples right off the top of my head. But if I don't agree or understand a certain cultural practice, I don't think that I should have to participate in it just because everyone else is doing it. If anything, I'm going to be more vocal about why we should stop doing that thing. I don't want to speak if I don't feel like speaking. I don't want to speak if I have nothing to say. I don't want to get excited or laugh at a joke that I don't think is funny just to stroke someone's ego. I don't want to waste energy going and saying goodbye to every single person at a party when I could disappear and protect my peace. Little things like that. That's probably something I could make a whole video on later. I'm also no longer willing to participate in hustle or grind culture and overwork myself. As someone who has struggled with many cycles of burnout and exhaustion, I'm beginning to respect my limits. And there is a bit of sadness there because acknowledging that I do have limits and acknowledging that I can't do everything that I want to do does mean that I have to make certain sacrifices for my own health. While I would love to film videos, write books, write songs, teach, practice acupuncture, do all of these things, I can't. I can't do it all. And that's simply one of the truths about living in the world today. You know, if I was able to do the things that I'm passionate about and not have to worry about, let's say, money or mundane things like, taxes, I might be able to do a lot more. But unfortunately, the monotonous day-to-day tasks like, taking your car in to get fixed, taking your cats to the vet, driving to work, like all of these different little things drain me to extreme amounts. And it doesn't leave a lot of room left in the fuel tank to do the things that I'm passionate about. Do I hope that one day we get to a society that values creation and passion over monetary success? Definitely. But we're not there yet. So I need to be honest with myself about where I'm at and what the world expects of me. Number 9 is a big one. And that is, I'm no longer willing to use substances to mask my discomfort or to make myself more palatable to others. This is a huge one, and one that I've really only started to adopt in the last couple weeks. For the last few years, I have been a really chronic user of marijuana, smoking pretty much daily. Not to like obscene amounts, but I would need at least some each day in order to function, in order to process the events of the day, or at least I thought I needed it. In social settings, I was basically unable to function sober. If I was at a party or something like that with more than, let's say, 6 or 7 people, I would need a few drinks in order to function, or a few puffs of a joint to function. But it was having disastrous effects on my physical and mental health. My sleep was disrupted. I felt like I was moving through a fog every single day. I wasn't able to be creative because any time that I felt discomfort in my life, I would numb it with some form of substance abuse. But I realized recently that most of the time when I was using a substance, it was not to benefit myself or to truly relax. It was to try and make myself more palatable to others or to feel more comfort in settings that I probably shouldn't have been in the first place. So that's been a really big step in my unmasking journey. And I really hope that it's one that sticks because these last couple weeks, now that I have stopped drinking and stopped smoking weed, I feel so much better. I'm sleeping deeply. I'm waking up with energy. I'm going for runs. I'm meditating. I'm engaging in creative pursuits like this. I feel like I'm really, truly engaging with my life again rather than just numbing myself to the point where I can't do anything. So that brings us to number 10, which is our last one of this video, and that is I will no longer beat myself up for no longer being able to mask. Because what I've realized is once that mask comes off, it's nearly impossible to put it back on. And I know that a lot of my friends and family are grieving as well because they had an idea of the kind of person that I was. They viewed me as this kind of charismatic, outgoing, maybe not outgoing, that's a bit too much. Most people know me as an introvert, but I think people saw me pushing myself more than I'm able to now. And initially, I felt the urge to apologize to everyone or to justify my need to mask. But at this point, I don't think I have anything to apologize for because I'm finally living my life from a place of authenticity and honesty. It might hurt people to know that the version of me that they met in university or high school was not really me. Elements of me were there, yes, but I think it's only now that people are starting to realize who I am at my core. It's only now that I'm finally feeling comfortable enough to share who I am in an authentic way. And the real me might look very different than the me that you thought you knew. But unfortunately, in order to protect my mental health, my physical health, and to live my life in a way that I feel truly proud of, these are the things that I need to do for myself. And maybe this is just another step in the journey of unmasking. Maybe I will find that after a year or two of this more kind of solitary, self-focused place that I'm in, I will feel ready to kind of re-engage and re-enter the world in some of the ways that I was able to before. But right now, what my mind and what my body are asking for are solitude, freedom to create, and for a sensory environment that is safe and comfortable. But I can already feel something brewing inside of me as a result of honoring these things. I can feel creative energy bubbling up from within me, and I don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but I do feel that by honoring my needs and by secluding myself for now, that I will be able to create something really beautiful. We'll see. In any case, if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you sticking around and watching. If you've seen elements of your own experience echoed within mine, please share a comment or send me a message. I'll leave links to my TikTok and my Instagram so that you can find me on all platforms. But I hope that some of the things that I've said have inspired you to take your own unmasking journey more seriously, to prioritize yourself, and to allow yourself to be the smart, creative, multifaceted, neurodivergent person that I know that you are.